teaching pedagogy using digital technology. Ladies and gentlemen, honored guests, please welcome Dr. William Marithi. Dr. Marithi, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Daniel, for that introduction. That was marvelous. I was just wondering whether that's myself being introduced or not. Thank you so much for the rest of you guys who've joined us for today. And this session will be about exploration in terms of digital transformation and also how we can build that into our business model. So what I'll try to cover, and of course guided by Daniel, is to be able to try my best as much as possible to be within the time frame, as well as allow for questions from the participants for today going forward. So what I would want to say, there's so much we can cover around this topic, and this is just something that is very, very we can't do everything in 1 hour. That's what I would say. So I'm just going to do a very quick explorations of what we're talking about when it comes to digital transformation and business model, and focusing particularly on that digital transformation. It's very interesting times that we are in, and of course, we're taking this context of COVID. Of course, what has changed between pre-COVID during this period of the pandemic, and then after that, what we expect things to change, and what you might be considering if you want to get into business, and if you want also to revolutionize or transform your business model. Because one of the things that we cannot do business as usual. So we have to go beyond this pandemic and think about how that is going to be transforming. As long as you know, also as well, we've transformed a lot of what the education is, higher education systems now. We have a lot of digital technologies that we've come up that we are using, and this is a very good example. I'm able to deliver this to you because of digital technologies that have arisen, and we have embraced it, and we want to expect that going forward, this is going to change. So in my presentation this evening, where you are, it's a bit morning where I am at the moment, but I'm going to cover some of these topics, not really in details, but give you an overview of what exactly to expect when you're talking about this. And now you can start thinking about a way forward in terms of your transforming your business, and also integrating some of these digital technologies into your business model. All right. So one of the things that I would like to note is that in the current situation, and of course what has been apparent in the last few years since this era of digitization appears, is that many sectors, of course, have been affected, and digitization is something that is still ongoing, and it is beyond actually improving just your product, services, and production processes. Innovation encompasses so much that it doesn't just encompass this areas, but we have to expand that. And one of the key things that actually is become apparent is the business model. One of the questions I've asked myself is, of course, there are some businesses that have gone out of business. Those businesses are going to close their doors. You will not see them even after COVID. When COVID is gone and we are back to normal, or the new normal as we call it, we will not see some of this business. Why? Because the business model was not built for the 21st century digital transformation era, where things have got to change. COVID has forced us to do things different, and we have to embrace that. And people are embracing that. There are people who will not go back to the brick and mortar business anymore because it's not sustainable, and they've already been transformed to something that is digital. They can do the services, operate, sell their products, their production processes without actually having to go to a brick and mortar building. That's what we're talking about here. So one of the things that we need to recognize, although business model change, and of course, there is expectation of that to change, it's never straightforward. You would not be able to put a like for like in terms of what you're going to change in terms of your business, but it's a process of transformation that you have to embrace and keep track of for you to be able to fully digitize your business, or bring up or get a new digital model. So in this particular presentation, I just want to focus on two things. Again, I say this is a very broad topics. When we talk about business model and business model innovation itself, it's a very wide topic that we cannot be able even to cover in a day, because we have really to get integrated in this. But I will talk within that in the process of course, context. Want to think about what's going to happen, what has been happening through this pandemic, and what is going to go happen about that towards the end with this era of digitization. And one of the things I want to note is the context of Industry 4.0, which is being referred as well as industrial era, whereby we have to do things differently. There's a lot of technologies that have come up. People call it the digitization era. Some call it the Industry 4.0, if you've heard about that term. Okay, so then again, we ask ourselves, what is a business model? If I was in my session, this would have been a very, very good open conversation. But because of this, again, I'm going to go ahead with exploring this. And then, of course, it's a very abstract concept here. We could have just illustrated that a bit more and understand about how business are built, what is the model behind it. But I mean, just to summarize this, business model are abstract concepts that describe how the business, which is abstract concept of the companies, work on a higher level. So this is not just the day-to-day activities that progress there, but this is going to be on a higher level in terms of businesses and the way they operate. So it's just an abstract model. I will show you some of the business models that have been used quite widely. And you can see, I mean, if it's put on paper, it's quite just an abstract thing that you don't understand, but it's on a higher level in terms of how businesses work. So why are we talking about business models? Why do we need to talk about these questions of how our business models are structured in this era of COVID-19, and even actually before, and going forward, it's going to become very apparent for us to be able to talk about this. One of them is because we are sort of like in that transition period where we are moving from dominant business logic that this is one of the dominating business logic that has been there, and people are focused on this business logic whereby they just do business. This is how business is being done. This is how they do their business, and we're moving away from that because again, we realize that we have to change, all right? We have to change the way we do business. We have to transition and change our business model. And that's why we are talking about business logic. And one of the things is trying to move away from what we know. Sorry about that hitch there. Moving away from what we already know. This is how business are structured. We want to move away from that to a very innovative business logic that is transformative in nature. And when it comes actually to management, all right, when you're talking about digitization and adopting digital technologies, we want to put ourselves in a situation whereby we're not just static. We have to think about how do we transform in changes when COVID comes, when something else is going to come, when competition comes. How do we transform our business model? So we're not very static, stuck, thinking that we have that domineering or dominant mentality or business logic, that this is the way we do things, this is the way we are structured. And this is one of the difficult things that entrepreneurs or businesses have to undergo, is how do we move from that static business model to a very dynamic business model. And that's why we are thinking about digitization technologies and digital technologies that are there that can help us really to change quite fast, track things, being able to capture things when they happen in real time for us to be able to model or to change that business model. So we're moving away from a very static, domineering business model, something that is quite very dynamic. It can be altered and it can be iterated. And we talk about, of course, businesses not being very static in the way they do things, in the way they run, because if you stay static, you don't transform your business, then what's going to happen is competition is going to beat you. All right. So in that sense, there are two very dominant business model, which I mean, ideally, again, I said this is a very abstract when you look at them on paper. But of course, most of the businesses that operate out there can be captured in either of this. One of them is
Dr. Moretti, sorry to chime in, but we've lost your presentation. Could you reshare that with us? Because we're seeing your face, but we don't see your presentation.
All right. Sorry about that. I think I might have. Let me try and get back to that. Let me know where you lost me, and I can try to get back to that. Okay, just a moment.
Don't you just love modern technology? Isn't it just
yeah?
best thing in the world?
This happens quite a lot in terms of technology. And sorry, let me just close a couple of them. What's on my screen? I think I've got so many things opened up at the moment, but I'll get back to you. Let me know if you can see presentation.
Yes, we can see your PowerPoint. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I'm just gonna try and get it to where. Is that okay? Can I start from there?
Yeah. Go ahead and keep going. I think we saw a little bit more than that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So I was talking into the why business models are important, and of course we're talking about this because business models, as you well define them, are abstract concepts that describe how another abstract concept, which is a business or companies, work on a higher level. And I was trying to describe this in terms of we're trying to move away from that static model to a very dynamic model that can be able to be transformed. Even when anything happens, pandemic happen in the world, we can be able to move or transition. And this is one of the things we've had to learn quite a lot in terms of the higher education. We have to transform ourselves and adopt different digital technologies for us to deliver, or to say we are continuously going to do what we're doing as a university. All right. I don't know whether that's still showing. Is my presentation still showing?
Yeah, we can still see everything.
All right, good, brilliant. So I was just showing you two common, business models out there. So there's one by Osterwalder's business. It's very, very common. Talks about they can be divided into three dimensions here, but it just breaks down what exactly your business is about. All right. So from the ranges from your value proposition, who are your key partners, your key resources, your cost for your business, and also your sources or revenue generation that is there. Who is your target customer, for instance? How do you relate with those customers? And how do you distribute your products to your customers as well and out there in the market? This breaks it down in a very simple way. Of course, this is, again, very abstract. People might say, this is too simple for my business. My business is full of systems and structures, and again, it's been proven, it's been researched that every business can fit into such a model, and it's very simple for people to understand how it works. But of course, on paper, how it is structured is quite different. The other one is the Seth Gallen business model, which deviate from having these factors and ask very important questions. One of them is, who is your customer? All right. Why are you selling, for instance? Why is your model profitable? That talks about the revenue model, and how do you deliver this value? All right. What is the value chain? What are you? How do you integrate yourself in such a way that you're delivering value to your customers? So one of the things that I think Daniel has mentioned is I'm looking into agricultural value chains, and that's one of the key things that we're trying to do with this I mean, things change now in the era of technology. Digital farming as well is happening quite a lot in the world. So we have to find ways to do things different. And that's why we're talking about value chain when it comes to transforming or digitizing this agricultural business and bringing up, of course, now it's quite changing in the way we do things. Even from the farming, you can farm remotely. You don't have to be there, but you can track your crops progress and ensure that you're able to monitor that through digital technologies. And that's what we're looking at the moment in terms of the value chains in agriculture. So the big question then, how do we link digital transformation and business model innovation? And that's why we're talking about digital transformation is just an enabler, all right, for new business models. So, of course, there is a range where you have to move away from your current, of course, business model that is quite probably very successful in the way you do your business. But again, you ask yourself, if my business today was attacked in a physical way that I'm not able to access my premises, can I still trade? Right? And that's where we're bringing in this digital transformation and saying, how can we digitize some of your operations or even your digital model and fully be able to transition that model to something that can be operated in a digital way, in an online, using the digital technologies that are there. So this becomes an enabler for different things. You can talk about enabling different new products to come on board, finding new clients or new customers for your business, creating and delivering new value, and value proposition is one thing that is quite very prominent when it comes to talking about your business and your business model. What's the value that you're delivering? And lastly, of course, opening up new ranges of increasing revenue and profit. So this is what we are talking about when it comes to how that transformation is happening and how that is building into your business model. I will be able to just highlight some of the things that I expect to change post-COVID for most of the businesses out there. I mean, of course, depending on where you are in the world, things might remain similar to what was there because of the ease of transition or because of the timelines that are there to allow businesses to do that, because again, of resources and these different aspects that come into business. Sometimes it just becomes about survival rather than just innovations that transforms a lot of business. But of course, things will change. That's what is current where we are. So when we talk about digital technologies, I mean, I'm not an expert of every digital technology that is out there, but I mean, ideally in general, we're talking about electronic tools, systems, devices, resources, and processes that can be able to process data. So this includes the likes of social media, online, a lot of online games, multimedia, mobile phones. This all can be digital tools, digital technologies that can be applied to your business. Of course, there's quite a lot right there. We cannot just finish that in a session like this. But think about it this way: we're coming from the .com era, where it was just that there's a time that you have to get your business online. So the .com era was quite big in the 90s, something that businesses rode quite a lot in putting them. And one of the fancy things then was to get your business online. Just having a website was enough. Now it's not. All right, let's agree on now. It's not just enough to have a website. Yes, having a website helps people to find you. You can be able to be accessible from anywhere in the world. But then again, if you're putting yourself there, have a website, have a nicely designed website, and then how do you get your services out there, get the product out there? So you have to digitize collection of orders when they come, payments as well, processing of orders, tracking that order from when it leaves your warehouse or business to when the client or customer receives it. So there's a lot of value chain that has to come into this era. And we're talking about quite a lot now, as I said, industrial internet, or the industry 4.0, as we mentioned it in Europe. But of course, what is driving this as a lot? You've heard about big data, or data is a new oil that is there, mining big data, and this is what people are using a lot. You've heard about Internet of Things that is there. So there's quite a lot of terms, and this can be also topics in themselves when you talk about digital transformation. So these transitions, using this digital technology, you can transition your production, go to automation, create new partnerships as well, new business revenue models that you get there. In terms of your customers, you're thinking about quality data, getting quality data from your customers. It's very important for your business because, again, when you know your clients, your customers well, you can start satisfied and of course, coming back into your business. Data analysis is another key feature, of course, for when you talk about digital technologies. And for enterprises, we are talking about design change, the way you do your business. Production planning is very important, collaboration with partners and other production. Marketing now on social media and other digital technologies as well. Revenue collection becomes something that is on top, right, in terms of what you can do with these technologies. So a digital business model is not quite different, all right? The only thing now is the aim of digital solution is to generate a significant advantage. And what we're trying to do here, for which your customers, of course, will pay for it. And you're trying to create this, streamline this process using different various digital technologies, depending on your ability. I mean, I would like to go into these cases in details, but I can't because of time again. But you're quite aware of Amazon, you're quite aware of Netflix, you're quite aware of Uber, you're quite aware of Airbnb, you're quite aware of this. I mean, in an ideal world where there's no digital technologies, Amazon will be just another marketplace. It's a market you go for different items, you collect them, you come back. But because of digitization, this is not something that you physically visit to go there. Airbnb as well, you'll be just a room agency, right? So it'll be a physical building somewhere where you go, and various cities, of course, for that sake, you can go there, you can find them. Now it's very easy for you to do that. Uber, for instance, will be a taxi center or carpool agency, so they wouldn't really be as big as they are because, again, digital technology has enabled their business model to be very adjustable, transformative. And that's what you can see. Some of these businesses are very quite successful. Netflix has shot up their revenues. Why? Because, I mean, instead of being a movie shop that was closed, or theaters have been closed for that they show movies, they people where go to have fun, but that has been closed because of COVID-19, all right? So, but Netflix has not been closed. It's quite actually more relevant now that people need entertainment. How do they keep themselves entertained is by accessing some of this. So business model becomes a very interesting process that you need to think about. How do you digitize this? Also for your customer acquisition and distribution, of course, some of this are based on your digital channels. Customer willingness to pay for your digital services, of course, is very, very important. And that's what we're talking about being an end-to-end solution. It's not just one-off a solution. It has to be from when the customer steps into your business, online, of course, or anywhere, and then how do they get out of that experience should be digitized completely. So digital business model ideas typically have higher scaling potential, and that's what I'm looking at. If you can carry anything out of here, think about a traditional business model. How do you scale that? It becomes very difficult because you have to invest a lot of resources in that. But when you have a digital business model, it's easier for you then again to transform it and to be able to innovate around that for your business. So there are various leverages that you can have. Of course, these are triggers that can help your business to go there. Some of them by default, others because of the technologies that are there. Think about the robotics in automation, for instance. This has brought a lot of triggering in terms of digitizing businesses. Think about the cloud computing, digital products, what they're enabling us to do. And then thinking about also mobile phones for now. I mean, this is mobile internet, the applications that are there for you, you can access social media. So these have become triggers for businesses to digitize. So there's a lot of technologies out there for you to be able to take advantage of. So again, this is another very interesting area to look at. The various models you're asking yourself, how can I then again identify these models out there? Of course, from that one single model that we've seen, there's a lot of other models from the premium model, which is just you are able to allow your customers to access your services for free, and then they have to opt into a subscription. Of course, there's a lot of digital technologies that as a business also you can be able to access for free, and then you want to make advertisement, Facebook, social media is one of the key things. Other applications as well allow you to do that, and then you start opening up those services from a business perspective. yourself as well. You might think this is the best model for you to get out there and to become very popular without having to constrain your customers. Give them a free application, give them a free digital technology that they can access from your business, and then by that they come on board for your business. There is a lot of marketplace models as well, the likes of Amazon Digital, where they bring in, integrate. They become sort of like a middleman, what we traditionally call middlemen, especially what I'm talking about in agricultural systems, is there are middlemen who get those products, transport them to the market. So this becomes a middleman, a marketplace place where Amazon, for instance, bring on sellers and of course buyers in the same marketplace online. Netflix does the same, is that kind of model, but also there are others use instead of buy, where we are having a lot of shared economy there. So I prefer not to buy a car. I can hire it. I can share. I can Uber. All right. So that becomes a lot of shared. How do you build your business around that shared economy, whereby you don't have even to access to invest that capital? Because again, what if you want to transform your business? What if you want to move away from that? Do you have to sell your assets, all of them again, at a loss, of course? How do you get into that? There's a lot of shared spaces, office spaces as well, where you can go, instead of having your own rentals, you share an office, you get your space, you continuously do your business. So there's a lot of models that are there. These are the key major ones out there. This is just a Netflix business model. If you want to look at it a bit more, of course, this is what we are talking about and what they've done. And of course, practically, I mean, you can think about Netflix and think about it's a complex system, but they've been able to break it down to these key dimensions, all right? Their customers' relationship, how do they build on that, all right? Think about their revenue models. How do they get that, all right? Think about their cost structure. What are some of the costs? Now, Netflix, Amazon have gone back to that traditional business model where Amazon is now acquiring shops, physical shops for their vegetables. They've realized they have to do that because, I mean, these are perishables. They have to get people there. So there's a lot of that integration back to what the traditional business model. Netflix has gone to movie production now. So they're doing a lot of their own production of the movies, which is something they were not really intending to do. But since they can adapt very well and they become a very big force in that industry, then they're able to do quite a lot in terms of their business. So reflections on what will change in business model resulting from digitization, of course, post-COVID. And this is quite a very interesting open debate of what can change. And this is what I want a lot of you to reflect on in terms of how your business, for instance, if you're having a business, or if you're thinking about creating a business, as I understand also there's some entrepreneurs, students, people who want to start businesses and think about this. And also if you're looking for a job, this is a very good sector in terms of digital marketing and digital business as well, where you can have your big shot here and try and see what's going to change. Because, I mean, COVID pandemic has changed the way we do things, all right? So some of the areas I thought really would change, it becomes your value proposition has to change, right? So you can't really sell the same value as you used to before COVID. You have to think about some of the things that you've been able to get if you've transitioned you're doing a lot of business on social media now, Facebook and the likes. You must also, I mean, find a way that you can use that data or anything of that nature for you to build your business, to know how future you can make your sales, how you're going to transition your business. So with the likes of big data coming on board and the likes of Internet of Things applications coming on board as well, there has to be a transition in the way you deliver value. So value has to change. Your value proposition cannot be the same, all right? When pre-COVID, you have to go beyond that to now think about what's the value I'm going to deliver to my customers and my stakeholders as well. So the other key things is, of course, your key activities will have to be changing. So you'll see less and less, for instance, people stepping out inside the business. If you have physical location, physical store, you'll see less and less of that. People will prefer now to order and being delivered, of course. So you have to think about how you can automate that process and accelerate that speed. Your resource efficiency, of course, has to be on point. Otherwise, you might run risk of losses, because you must think of the best way to use your resources to be able to deliver to your customers, to deliver the value proposition that you've put forward for your business, quality and flexibility in terms of production. Channels is going to change. This is one of the areas that is quite interesting to me when it comes to digitization, is the channels, the way we're accessing the new channels, are we creating the new customers we can exploit or explore in terms of digital technologies. So of course, think of where you are in your location. I mean, you're losing a lot of business if you're not digitized at the moment, because there are probably nationals who are abroad want to access those services. They can't. The people as well who are in other countries, they've traveled probably to Philippines or Manila, and they want really to access your services. After they leave, they can't. All right. So you're losing out if you're not on digital. And going forward as well, the people not willing to come back to the way we used to do things. And for the next maybe 2 years, they were saying it's going to take until maybe 2025 or 2026 for people to get that confidence to really go back to normal, if there is anything called going back to normal. All right. Lastly, and this is where now it makes a lot of sense for businesses. If I'm selling you digital technologies and I'm telling you you're going to get new streams of revenue, this is where it's very, very important. And of course, we have to think about the different ways we are losing out, all right, in terms of services. If I can be able also to reach my customer directly from my business, I'm taking away brokerage, I'm taking away middle people take advantage of my profit that I could get directly from your customers. This is where also you think about if you have a good technology, how can you license it to even other providers, for instance, of the same similar businesses, for them to benefit. And those are revenue streams, because you're licensing your technology, you're doing that quite a lot for people to access your services. So again, we can take a day to explore this, but I'm just going to give it that broadly so I can take some questions. If any questions comes from this area, I'm quite happy to address it. And one of the things that you're going to, think about, this is the loop for a lot of assumption-based business model development. So it's not going to happen in a day. It's not going to happen in a week. It's not even sometimes doesn't happen in a year, depending on what the technicalities of your technology. But of course, thinking about this loop is thinking about how your problem fits into your value or the product market fit, and then you go to your revenue model. Then the value proposition has to be redefined, as we said, and then you scale up your business. And that's where now you have that liberty, or you have that ability to transition different periods. So again, I'll say this, going forward, there is no way you're going to business as normal, right? So I had a few major takeaways, but of course, again, this can be conversed as we discuss the questions. But I would like to stop there so that I don't take much of the time and take questions. Daniel, is that okay?
Absolutely, that is just fine. So let's go ahead and we will close that presentation already, and then we will just continue. So if anyone does have any questions, we welcome them. Just enter them into the chat box. Again, we'll get to as many as we can in the time we have remaining. I've got a few questions lined up for you to start things off. So earlier in your presentation, when you were talking about kind of the impact of digital transformation on business models, not necessarily post-COVID, but just in general, you were talking about the impact of big data and its impact at an enterprise level. Do you see that? What kind of impacts are we talking about, and where do you see that in the small to medium enterprise space?
Okay, all right. So when it comes to big data, as I said again, they say this is the new oil, because one of the things I do really advocate when it comes to businesses, if you're not really accessing any particular data for your business, when it comes also, for instance, what I would say is that I see a lot of changes when it comes to customer preferences and taste. and that's really quite changing in the way they do their purchasing habits now. I mean, if you think about it, those businesses that were never getting any information in terms of how their customers were changing, right? In terms of how many times they bought the items, how many times they came into the shops, how many times, for instance, they were visiting their website, for instance. These are things that you need to really start thinking about when it comes to data. I mean, of course, for small businesses, it becomes a very interesting conversation because of the access to resources that they have. But again, there are so many free digital technologies that they can access to start with before they start building on them and try to invest a bit more money into getting that data. So that's why collaborations in this business technologies, and also in terms of trying to really integrate them into your business, becomes very important. So one of the biggest impact is actually on sales and revenue generation for small business enterprises. Large companies can easily do that because they build systems that can be able to track that kind of data in terms of their customers. Of course, we're in the world where also we are doing a lot of data protection and that kind of thing. So businesses, again, small businesses, depending on where you are in the world, might be challenged in that area. So one of the things I would really advise small businesses is to find digital technology tools that they can be able to use slightly and being very affordable in terms of their business models, to be able to take advantage of those as they progress to grow.
Mm-hmm. As a follow-up to that, you mentioned when you were talking earlier, you had a figure on screen and it showed anything as a service. Is that kind of what you're talking about here, where you have businesses that really cater to other businesses in terms of meeting these sorts of digitization realities? Because, you know, not every business, especially if they only have, 30 or 50 employees, can afford to hire a whole data science team and, figure out how to code all that stuff. So that is that part of anything as a service, or is that even broader as a category?
So the thing with digitization is actually very interesting because, again, as a business, especially small businesses, and some of them are quite actually even sole traders, you can't really be able to do everything. So there's a lot of outsourcing in this field, and whereby the businesses that are built up in terms of maybe making it possible for your business to be able to access storage or data storage, cloud computing services, and that kind of thing. There are other business models that, for instance, will deal with payment services, and this is some of the things that actually you outsource. Of course, you will end up to have to come to an agreement with these service providers when it comes to, of course, how you share that revenue and in terms of profits, what percentage they will take. But again, I always advise the business, it's better for you to share that revenue, of course, depending on the proportions, rather than just stay away from it and miss out on that transformative expansion. Because at the end of the day, you're thinking about how can I scale my business? So the more you scale your business, the more revenue comes in and the more profit you get, other than just staying static and saying, I will not use that service providers because they're taking something away from my business. So as long as, of course, that is cost is as it comes from the revenue model rather than just the cost model, because with the cost model, you have to think about also, you have the money to pay that. But when it's getting out of the end user services, it's easier for you at the end of the day, and your business has to integrate that into the business model and can scale up. So scaling is quite very important when it comes to business. So there's a lot of services out there, as said. I mean, of course, some of these digital services are there. It becomes very, unless you have resources or your business, again, when you talk about digitization, there are also digital businesses that start as digital. When you heard about being born global, for instance, some businesses do start as international business. So there are also businesses that start with, the model is just a digital business. They don't have a physical location. If they have, it's just a small office somewhere, but their major business is being run in a digital platform.
Okay. Great. So we've got a question from one of our participants. This is coming from Jaira, who asks, how do you think businesses or locations who have less access to technologies will cope with this shift towards digitalization?
That's a very interesting question. Again, I said when I was presenting is depending on where you are in the world, and we have to appreciate of course, some areas or some geographic locations are disadvantaged when it comes to development of digital technologies. But again, the digital technologies that or models that are quite being open to the world. So depending on where you are, and things might change because of the timelines. But one of the things that we cannot take away from whatever is happening even during this pandemic is, if you have to remain competitive, if you have to put a model that has to be very transformative when it comes to today's COVID. I mean, we don't know what next will be. It might be something which is bigger that will come across the board. So when you ask yourself, will I be in business if my business was attacked or was shut down in terms of access into whatever physical? So one of the things that I would advise is for these small businesses is to take very affordable, easy access models, free buys models that, for instance, social media. One of them is Facebook. Facebook, again, depending on your target market, the likes of Instagram, where a lot of people are taking advantage of this, because these technologies are, as long as you have a smartphone, a mobile phone that you can be able to download the app, you can access this. So go for the free services that are there before you can integrate to your business fully to a business model that is digital. So you try looking at what are some of the things that I can plug into my business when it comes to digital technologies for me to be able to take advantage of that. Of course, if you're thinking about the major things like robotics, automation, there will be a lot of cost involved that for specific areas in the world. They will not be able to catch up with that for a very long term. It's a bit disadvantage we're facing because of the way these technologies are structured and the way, of course, cost and investment comes in. But they're very easy to access or maybe affordable or cheaper options that you can try to integrate into your business model as you progress. So don't shy away from that. Don't think about, of course, the cost involvement, and of course, try to integrate some of those small wins that you can for your business, because that really will start unlocking potential or revenue for you to get better technologies for your business going forward.
Okay. All right. We have another question from a participant. This is coming from Darren, who asks, what is your take on the businesses that had no chance of seeing digital transformation, such as pubs or certain restaurants?
Okay, so in my thinking, there is actually, no business that cannot take advantage of digital technologies. Restaurants and pubs, yes, these are very specific service industries that the model is built around maybe the traditional business model, but there's a lot of delivery services now for restaurants that are there, which of course is part of that digital technology in terms of getting an experience. Of course, until we open up, until we are out of this, that will not be. But if you wait until this is gone, then you will risk going out of business. For restaurants, for me, they can take services like delivery services. People used to patronize them, of course, before COVID or even any pandemic that has happened or will happen in the future, is people become loyal. So if you lose them, if you're not able to get something to them, even if it's just encourage them to order a meal a week or just something like that. So you can take some digital delivery services that can come there. For restaurants, pubs also I've seen very interesting. These are social, of course, that have to be, we take that consideration of that model. They've been very challenged as well, but there's a lot of, innovative ways to encourage people to patronize your products. If you can be able also to come up with, of course, there are events now on Zoom that you can host, so you can never run away to say there's no business that can be able to access. It's just being innovative and thinking about the ways you can get engaged with your clients or customers or people patronize you before. Think about how can you hold a Facebook Live, for instance, for a pub and have a DJ in there because that's the only person who can be allowed, and play music for the rest of people. Make it creative, make it fun, all right? So there's small things that you can do that don't have to take you or to invest a lot because of the technologies. But then again, thinking forward, some things will come to know it might take a bit of time depending on where you are. The cost also is very, restrictive again. but there's small things that you can think about doing that can be able to take advantage of the challenges that are there.
Okay. All right. Another question we have. This is coming from Tram, who asks, how do we mitigate or prevent another dot-com bubble burst during the rise of Internet 4.0 or Industry 4.0?
So that goes beyond, I mean, what we are talking about today, because it's quite a big area. When what happened then was, I mean, of course, with what it comes with new technologies and new investments, people jump on it and people put a lot of money, and that takes it way beyond that. But again, we've learned. What I would say is people have learned, technology have learned, countries have learned, businesses have learned about that. So, I mean, of course, it's bound to repeat itself with future technologies. I will not say that is something that is will be avoided. As we say, we've seen with financial crisis, again, they've repeated themselves. As we see about pandemics, also some of them repeat themselves. They manifest in different areas. So we might see that kind of dot-com era collapse that would probably come in future. But of course, with whatever is happening out there is just that people have learned, people now with information, and of course information is quite available now to people, and they will be able to take. Before then, because of the internet that was building up, and this was opening up people to new information, to new things. Now it's not quite easy to fall into that trap again. But of course, I'm not saying it's gonna happen anytime soon. But I think from experience and from what history has taught us is we might face something like that in future. So I will not say it's not going to happen.
Okay. We have another question here, which is coming from Monica. She asks, do you have some examples of small businesses that successfully translated digital transformation to business success? Are there any examples that you can cite for small businesses?
Okay, so there will be a lot of examples of small businesses. One of them, actually, I would say, is one that we are working on currently. Apparently, I don't have very good examples from Manila or Philippines, but I've got a few of them from where I come from, of course. One of them is it's a business called Taimba. It started as a very small enterprise that was using digital technologies to integrate the value agricultural chains. And this is one that was linking up, of course, it's linking up farmers and customers out there. I mean, to my definition, it's quite actually now it's transitioning to a medium enterprise with just the micro enterprises. And of course, that technology that they build is accessible to, it's something that is accessible to many. Of course, they have to bring up that marketing to be able to roll out that technology. But when they started, it was quite, I mean, a few customers that were buying, there are a few farmers that were engaged, but now they've got quite a lot, that revenue, and they're getting about, I think the last time I checked, was about $15,000 to the tune of a year as well in terms of growth from a very, very small business. So what I'm saying is for you to integrate this digital technology to small businesses, what it allows you is that scaling ability, right? So when you have the right technology in, you can scale. So you don't have to keep on coming back to invest. It's just that scaling that is there, and that scaling that is allowed when you're a small business.
Okay, great. All right, we have another question. This comes from Aiko. She asks, should businesses also consider slowing down their transitions or engagements with technology for customers and for employees who can't cope with such changes? For people who struggle with these fast-changing technologies.
The thing about technology is whether you slow down or whether you ignore it, it doesn't stop. All right, that's what I would say. So if you, I mean, ideally, I've seen businesses that have, I mean, one of them, which is the biggest, I think you might have Primark. I mean, has really avoided online trading, and they've actually, I mean, done that. I don't know whether it's intentionally, because they like people to visit their shop, because I mean, their business model is quite different. But what has happened during pandemic is they've lost quite a lot. They've lost quite a lot, huge business, because their business was closed, all right? So it becomes an issue of, should we stick with one or should we go at least build something digital? I can say this, businesses can choose to ignore it. Business can choose to stay the way they are and see what happens, but that's a big risk to take. I think I understand also the pile that may come with all these changing technologies. And that's why I say, I mean, for me, with businesses that have been there and they've built their business around the traditional model, what they can do is try integrate pieces of their business model. As you say, I mean, that was quite a very basic business model on paper. You can choose, for instance, channels, deliveries. You can choose, for instance, payment and revenue generation at the end, and think about what aspect can we try to integrate slowly. You can't go away from it now, right? So thing is, whether you stop, whether you ignore it, whether you really, I mean, you risk going out of business, because if a business is going to take your business and it's something that people will like, and of course, changing consumer technologies are there. So many people on social media, there's so many people using smartphones now, there's so many people who are, I mean, all this is happening. So rather than just ignore or stop or slow down, of course, slowing down is very, I mean, it's difficult to say you can slow down as much as possible, but you can slowly integrate. That's what I would try and say. Don't rush it as well, because some businesses, I really see some businesses where they come up with a very good application and I ask them, okay, so you've got an application. What does it add value? Where is the value? A transition. If I can't see that value from, this is the previous value before you integrated, and what is the value? Because that might change. That the value proposition will change when you have a digital technology. So you see some of them are doing it for the sake of it because people are doing it. So they don't have a strategy, a digital strategy to take advantage of that, transform their value. So with that is when I say, if you invest so much money into something that you don't know how it's going to be, then stay out of it, all right? But there's so many ways you can try and slowly integrate rather than slow down. You slowly integrate to those technologies and you take advantage of that without a burnout to your employees. And of course, resources and revenue, resources are very important into that process of what you can afford. So don't, I mean, go into taking a big loans to get those technologies on board and you've not really fully integrated your business model to that. So take get advice and try to see areas where you can slowly integrate your business model to take advantage of digital technologies that are there.
So try to sort of take advantage of that low-hanging fruit that exists when it comes to digital integration, things that will be easier to integrate or the things that will be cheaper to integrate or the things that will have the most revenue impact, for example, and start, you have to take the first step at least and just go from there.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. We've got another question. This is coming from Mark, who asks, in terms of focus, given the current situation, should firms remodel fully into a digital platform, or should they remodel in a hybrid manner, online and physical?
Okay, so this is again a very interesting question, and one, if I will answer it in two phases. For instance, I will just break that question to two. So if you're starting a business now and you're thinking about going into business, right? What I would say is start from a digital business model. Of course, the conditions that not allow business as usual. Sorry. So you start from a digital platform and you build your business from there. But if you've been existing, all right, so this is where you cannot abandon one to go to the other. This is where now you think about how do you integrate your business in a hybrid model, because there's still part of your huge chunk of your business that is not operating in the traditional way you've been, or just the way your business has been. And also there is this platform you try to build that can take advantage of that. So with time, with a very good plan in place, you can just get a hybrid model. Or again, as I said earlier, try and identify, this is just picking, this is pick and choose where you can actually benefit from digital. It might be also, for instance, my business is still operating. I have a shop, I have a warehouse, I have products. Maybe I can do, instead of waiting for my customers to come to my shop, I can deliver this to them. So you're taking away that chunk of trying to build this hybrid model, right? So of course, there will be benefit of both those who are physically coming or those who are, I mean, of course, you can't have the same number of shoppers in the mall, for instance, now, because of the space restriction, because of all these policies that come up. But you can still serve the same customer if you integrate and make a choice. Some of them who are willing to come still can get out. Those who are willing to get the product delivered to them can. So there is that hybrid model. If you're already an existing business, you think about a hybrid model. But if I was to start a business now, why should I invest a lot of money in a physical location, for instance, if I'm not even assured of returning that money or investment back? So I might actually think about, we call this minimal viable product that I can deliver online or a digital platform. And I just start from there and then build that business that it pays itself to, if I want still to have a physical location, that's fine and good. All right. So that's two-way. If I'm starting a business, I'll go the digital way. If I have a business that is existing, of course, you can't wipe that history out. You have to get an hybrid model that works for you.
Okay. I think we are just about out of time, and that was our final question. So let me just close today by thanking you very much, Dr. Murithi, for taking your time to share your insights on business model innovation using digital transformation post-COVID-19. I think this is a crucial topic, both here in the Philippines, where we are, and worldwide. And we have audience members from all around the world, over 100 with us today. So thank you so much again for taking the time to speak with us today. And we hope you'll consider joining us again for another in the future.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much, Daniel. And for the audience as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for listening. All right.
Thank you to all of the participants for joining us. We will be holding more of these in the future, so keep your eyes peeled for future invites. If you do have any questions, feel free to type them into the chat box and we will pass them along to Dr. Murithi. And we will be sending everyone e-certificates of completion for joining today's masterclass. Thank you all once again. And on behalf of De Montfort University and Southville International School affiliated with Foreign Universities, or SISFU, we thank you. See you next time.
Thank you so much.